Now we're going to talk about the 5-number summary. You might be like, what in the world, Mr. Leonzo, what have you talking about? So far, we talk about quartiles, right? Then we have the quartile 0. Remember, I called it quartile 0, quartile 1, quartile 2, quartile 3, and quartile 4. Isn't that a list of 5 numbers? That's why we call that the 5-number summary. Quartile 2. Another name for quartile 2 is the median, right? Quartile 0 is the smallest. Quartile 4, that's the largest. Now, quartile 1 is a number in between the smallest and the median, right? It's the one in between quartile 0 and quartile 2. Quartile 3, notice, is in between the median and the largest. So we're going to work on those. So now here, teacher Alana has created a graph, which is shown below, of the cumulative frequencies of the scores that 36 students received on the test. Use this information to find the minimum, which is quartile 0, the smallest, quartile 1, the median, quartile 3, and the maximum scores. Okay, so you might be wondering, how do you read these things? Okay, let me zoom in here. This point is 0, 0, right? This point is 1, 5. This point right here, it is like 2, 9. Okay. Notice how my X value are the scores. The cumulative frequencies is my Y value. My 0, 0, so remember 0 score, so that means 0 or less, 0 people got. Remember, my first number is the score. 0 or less, 0 people got. Okay, it's interesting. 1 or less, 5 people have 5 or less. So I'm gonna say, well, that means that 5 people got 1 point. Score of 2 or less, 9 people have. So there's 9 people that have 2 or less. I know there's 5 people that have 1, right? So that means there's 4 people that got 2. Okay, let me read this other point right here. This is 3/15. Remember, my first is a score, but because we're using cumulative frequencies, you guys created tables last unit. Score of 3 is 15 people, 3 or less. The score of 3 or less, 15 people have. Remember how 9 people had 2 or less? I'm gonna say 6 people got 3. So on and so forth. We can read that. Up until my last point here, it is 8/36, which means 8 or less, 36 people have. Yeah, there's 36 people, so it makes sense that the highest value is 36. So there's 36, right? I'm gonna be looking at my values here, my cumulative frequency, the scores that they have. I'm gonna say this right here is my biggest number, 36. Now, what's the half of 36? Oh, and then my smallest number will be 0, right? What's the half of 36? Because remember, the median is right in the middle. Well, that should be 18, right? If you notice, I'm counting by ones here. So 18, it happens to be right here. So far, we have this as quartile 4, quartile 2, quartile 0. Okay, I know quartile 1 is in between 0 and 18. What number is in between 0 and 18? Well, do the average, right? 0 plus 20 divided by 2 is, 0 plus 18 divided by 2 is 9. So my quartile 1 is 9. How about my quartile 3? That's in between 18 and 36. What number is in between 18 and 36? If you don't know, then add 18 plus 36 divided by 2. I know 18 plus 36 is 54. Divided by 2 is 27. So I'm going to say here, this is going to give me my values for quartile 3. Now here, they're asking me about the scores, right? Because notice how we have a cumulative. Use this information to find the minimum, quartile 1, medium, quartile 3, and maximum score. Isn't the score my X values? Okay, so this is how I'm gonna find this out. For my quartile 4, let me follow this. Let me see, where do I meet here? So it gives me my quartile 4 is 8. It's interesting. So let me write here my quartile 0, which is the minimum, quartile 1, quartile 2, which is the median, my quartile 3, and my quartile 4. I just found out my quartile 4 is 8. Okay, my quartile 3, I'm gonna follow this to see where do I meet my graph. Boom, it's right there. What's the score at that point? 6. So my quartile 3 is 6. My quartile 2, let me follow this graph right here. Where do I meet it? There. What's my X value at that point? 4. My quartile 1, let me follow this graph. Where do I meet it? Here. What's the X value? 2. And my quartile 0, the X value is 0. So there. My quartile 0, my quartile 1 is 2, 4, 6, and 8. That's simple. So that's simple, Mr. Leonzo. Let's take a look at another question. The biologist Paisley has created a graph, which is shown below, cumulative frequency of the ages of 24 fish found in the pond. Use this information to find the minimum, quartile 1, median, quartile 3, and maximum age. Okay, so remember, let me do here my quartile 0, which is the minimum, my quartile 1, quartile 2, which is the median, quartile 3, and quartile 4, which is the maximum age. There's 24 fishes, right? So it makes sense that the smallest number is 0 and the biggest number is 24. You guys see that? Okay. So between 0 and 24, what's the number in the middle? So remember, this is going to be my quartile 4, and this is going to be my quartile 0. Okay. Between 0 and 24, what's the number in the middle? If we don't know what's the number in between 0 and 24, then add the two numbers, 0 plus 24 divided by 2. That gives me 12. So that's my quartile 2. Okay, between 0 and 12, what's in between? What's in between 0 and 12? Like, what's in the middle? If you don't know, get the average of 0 and 12. So add the two numbers, 0 plus 12 divided by 2 gives me 6. So this is my quartile 1. Now, between 12 and 24, what's the number in the middle? If you don't know, do the average. 12 plus 24 divided by 2 is 18. Okay, so my quartile 4, or let's start with quartile 0 this time, right? Quartile 0. Where do I meet the graph? Here. What's the X value at that point? 0. My quartile 1. Where do I meet the graph? Here. What's the X value at that point? 2. My quartile 2. Where do I meet the graph? Here. What's the X value at that point? 3. My quartile 3. Where do I meet the graph? Here. What's the X value at that point? 5. My quartile 4. Where do I meet the graph? Here. What's the X value at that point? 7. Wasn't that easy? Wasn't that nice? My 5-number summary is my smallest number, or minimum, or quartile 0, quartile 1, quartile 2, quartile 3, and quartile 4. Remember, quartile 0, it's either called smallest or minimum. Quartile 2, we tend to call a median. And quartile 4, we tend to call largest or maximum. But let's do it here as well. Find the 5-number summary for the numbers below. Then find the 5-number summary if one instance of the value 110 is added to the list. Okay, so this is what we're gonna do. Let me write my numbers in order from smallest to largest. So I'm gonna write let's see, 46, 48, 48, 48, 53, 54, 54, 57, 58, 59, and 65. I'm looking at my list or my original list. Right, there's what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 numbers. Okay, so what's the number in the middle? This number, right? Happens to be a number in the middle. So, okay, good. I crossed it. That's going to be my median. Now to the left, there's 5 numbers, right? What's the number in the middle? Here, my 48. On the upper half, what's the number in the middle? Here, 58. And then my smallest is 46 and my biggest is 65. This is my quartile 0, quartile 1, quartile 2, quartile 3, and quartile 4. Some are regional values. So my minimum is 46. My quartile 1 is 48. My median is 54. My quartile 3 is 58. And my maximum is 65. Those are the original values. Let me switch to blue because now I'm going to add 110. So I'm going to add a new value to this list. So again, let me go from smallest to largest. I'm going to write 46, 48, 48, 48, 53, 54, 54, 57, 58, 59, 65, and 110. I added a number. Now, keep in mind, on your homework, on your quizzes and your tests, sometimes I might ask you to add a number, add a value, like our case. We added a number. Sometimes I might ask you erase a number. So instead of adding an extra number, you're going to take a number away. So be careful in the instructions. I may ask you add a value or I may ask you to subtract a value. Here I ask you to add a value and the value is 110. Okay, so now there's what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 values. So let me cut this in half. Now this one is not, I'm not going to cross a number exactly. Notice I separated my list in half. So I didn't go through a numbered. I actually went in between. So here at the left, I have 6 numbers, right? I have 6 numbers. Cut it in half. Well, you might be like, well, the half of 6 is 3. Okay, good. So I'm going to separate it into 3 on each side. Don't go through a number. I go in between 2 numbers. The same thing here on the side. There's 6 numbers, cut it in half. So I'm going to go here. So for my minimum, what's the smallest number that I see on my list? 46. All right, that's the smallest, the minimum. My quartile 1, I went in between 2 numbers. So what's the number in between 48 and 48? Well, it's the same thing, right? So I'm just going to write 48. Now, some of you might be like, how do I know? Well, if you don't know, add these 2 numbers, 48 plus 48, and then divide by 2. Get the average of those 2 numbers. And that's how you're going to know. It happens to repeat, so might as well just repeat it. My quartile 2, my median, it has to go in between 54 and 54. You might be like, well, that's easy then. It's 54. It's the same thing. For my quartile 3, it has to go between 58 and 59. Okay, doesn't repeat this time, right? So what number, decimals included, what number goes between 58 and 59? If you don't know, get the average of those. 58 plus 59 divided by 2. My case, I'm going to get 58.5. And the largest number you guys can see is 110. So basically, I ask you to do the same question, and there's 2 answers. Okay, One was the original numbers. And then the second list, I either add a number or subtract a number. So in this case, I added a value. But again, sometimes I might ask you to erase a value. Good. Now this last one. Find the 5-number summary for the numbers below. Okay, let me put this in order. My smallest number is 4, 17, 18, 25, 27, 28, 29, 30, 33, 33, and 39. Put my numbers in order from smallest to largest, but not a big deal. We know how to do that. Okay, how many numbers do we have? Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11. Okay, there's 11. So it's an odd numbered. So that means in the middle, I'm gonna have a numbered exactly. So boom, what's the number in the middle? Right here. That's the number in the middle. If my amount was even, then I would have to say, oh, I don't go through a number. I go in between two numbers. Now on the left, there's 5 numbers, right? So boom, I go through a number. On the right, there's 5 numbers. The middle's here. So my 5-number summary. Which one's the smallest number that we see on the list? 4. Which is my quartile 1? 18. Which one's the median? 28. Which one's my quartile 3? 33. Which one's the largest number, the maximum number that I see on my list? 39. So remember, 5-number summary, it's the minimum or quartile 0, quartile 1, quartile 2, which is also known as the median, quartile 3, and quartile 4, which is also called the maximum or the largest.